Hey, let's see, everyone, another live feed. This is on a topic I touched on kind of often in my videos, and that's hope being used as a business strategy. Um, while I'm letting a few people jump in, I want to touch briefly on quick update on Kyle's accident yesterday. So for those that don't know, he got into a fender bender yesterday, and so we were sort of talking about hope and how that's a really crappy plan, and the moment he chose to either one, drive too fast, or two, drive or follow too closely to the vehicle in front of him, he gave up all of his options, right? He sort of gave all those options away, and now all he has left is hope that things go well. And so he sent me a picture yesterday of the bumper, and it was a really small dent. I'm thinking, $300 maybe tops to have that dent fixed. Worst case, you got to replace the bumper. It's just a black steel bumper, right? How bad can that be? So I also made Kyle call the company. I told him he'd probably need to call ask for human resources, and they can put him in the right direction and tell him what happened, and that he's wanting to call to see if he can pay for this. So he does. He leaves a voicemail, and Carrie from HR calls him back. Carrie is the one that, in fact, is going to manage this issue, and she explains that this is now this was just a work truck like a pickup, but she explains to Kyle this is a revenue-producing vehicle, and so on and so forth. And oh, by the way, after further inspection, it appears that there is a dent or damage to the right rear quarter panel. And oh, by the way, the tailgate's not opening and closing correctly. She then concludes by telling Kyle that in her experience dealing with this, and she says that she deals with this often, she anticipates the bill not to be somewhere in the $300, $400, possibly even $500 range. She's expecting it to be more in the $4,000 to $5,000 range. That phrase, silence is deafening. I could hear my son swallow hard when he heard that news, which sort of begs the question, do I turn this into to insurance, or do I maybe just write a check for half of it and make him pay for the other half? Now, in addition to paying for that $2,500 to fix this, he's gonna have to pay for the ticket that we don't yet know what that's gonna cost. He's gotta go to court to find out what that's gonna cost. My guess is probably somewhere in that $100 to $150 range. And he, of course, there is the option, of course, that he attends driving school. I don't know what that costs. I'm assuming that that's gonna cost a few $100 as well. So my ex-wife, we were sort of having this conversation this morning. She's like, what do we, do we have what kind of consequences do we ground him? Do we, what do we do? And is just the financial burden enough? So that's just sort of a work in progress. But certainly a little bigger price tag than maybe what I was certainly thinking even. So next steps are she's going to take the truck in to have an estimate done on Friday, and she'll get me the quote back on Monday, she said. And Kyle, man, he just didn't know what to say. He did not know what to say, other than what should we do, Dad? And I said, well, I think we've got a couple of days that we would sort of have to work through all of the decisions, and kind of come to a resolution. So that situation is still very much in flux. A really expensive lesson, and honestly, probably a good lesson to learn, certainly at a very early age. But in any event, time for Crown Royal. I'm not a big Crown fan, but I guess it's 5 o'clock. So actually, it's 5 o'clock here. It's almost 6 o'clock here. Hey, so I've talked about hope not being a good business strategy a lot on my channels, my first channel and this channel. And I say it often because as I talk to a lot of different drivers, carriers, and things of that nature, hope is a significant component of their business plan. And so that's really dangerous, right? Does that mean that hope doesn't play any part of business at all? And ironically, I think it does, right? But I think you need to understand what component of hope does it really play, and where should it play? And I think the answer is, and while I'll use trucking as an example, I think hope plays a role in it when you take a whole lot of knowledge, a whole lot of real world experience, tangible and intangible data for that matter, and you make a lot of really solid decisions predicated on all that information, right? And a whole lot of other things as well. So you take all that information and you pull it together, and you, in this example, right, you decide, hey, I'm going to buy a truck, or I'm going to buy a truck for another driver. I'm going to lease them on, or I'm going to have somebody run underneath my authority, that sort of thing. When you start giving them access to trucks, trailers, fuel cards, things of that nature, and I mean, in some cases, people are just doing some, what I consider really ridiculous stuff. I mean, they'll take family money or houses and they'll leverage that to go and put somebody in a truck, or a couple of somebodies in a truck, and then they hope, right, that they can trust that individual, because I think that's the delineation where hope kind of comes into things, is because hope is typically built around a level of trust. You hope. So you're gonna have some level of trust, but again, based on knowledge and experience and tangible data and intangible data and all this sort of stuff. And you're gonna give them these assets, and you're gonna hope that they go out and perform to the level of your expectations. It's when they don't that things crumble. And that's when it gets back to the beginning of that business plan of having solid data, solid information, not just on your skills and your abilities to manage or to lead, but on those individuals' ability to manage their clock, manage their truck, manage their fuel spend, manage their time, their ability to lead themselves or problem solve. All those sorts of things is where it comes into a big component of those business decisions. I think where people get confused about hope, and it sort of gets murky, and that's exactly what hope is, right? It's a really murky way of thinking. It's things that are vague. It's ambiguous. It's those sort of things is where it gets really sketchy. And I came across this article here, I don't know, a while back. And I actually tried to find the author, and I want to spend a few minutes. I actually want to read this. And I just, let me find it here. Where did it go? I can't find I really want to credit the author of this article, and I can't find their name. I think all I could find was their last name was like Dungeon or something like that, and I don't even know if that's their real name. In any event, they discuss, this guy's an author, and they discuss why it's a really bad business strategy, and he discusses 5 reasons. I thought I would just spend a few minutes and run through these really quickly. One, this individual discusses that hope encourages really sloppy thinking. And man, whether that's, look, I'm talking about business, but to me, this applies, again, with Kyle, with our personal relationships, our professional relationships, just across the board. I think hope is pretty sketchy, right? But he says, look, he says, I'm not going to read all of his explanations, but it encourages sloppy thinking, and I think I think we all probably can understand where that goes. Number 2, he says it tends to ignore the past, or at least minimize the past's lessons. How many times have we dated somebody when we were younger, or for that matter, whatever, in our adult life? We dated somebody and it was just a debacle. It was a disaster. And then some amount of time later, we think, we'll give that a try again, right? And it's probably just as much of a debacle, but for different reasons, right? Because we tend to have different baggage or different problems that we've carried along the way. Number 3, it tends to promote delusional thinking. I'm going to get to that point in just a minute. Number 4, he says, hope, when used as a strategy, rejects facts, glosses over the evidence, and believe what it wants to believe because it wants to believe it, so therefore it must be true. I speak a lot in terms of facts, in terms of evidence and things of that nature, because that's how my mind is wired, and that doesn't mean it's better or whatever. Trust me, there's a lot of times when you live your life like that and you throw in a little bit of ADD on top of that, it makes for a really miserable life at times. I think there's a lot to be said to that, because I think it does reject facts and it glosses over evidence and things of that nature. Again, we don't want it to be what it really looks like it is. Number 5, it inflates the positives. And this guy just nails it on the head, in my opinion, in these these bullet points. Number 5, it inflates the positive. It deflates the negatives, and therefore it clouds the faculty to make intelligent decisions and based on intelligent action. So, in my opinion, I have had the pleasure of working under, being mentored by some really, really talented and exceptional leaders. Some of those individuals, played professional sports. Some were, very, very senior C-level executives at some Fortune 10 companies. One of those individuals was in Forbes 400 list, almost cashed out his company at $900 million in his pocket. So I've been really fortunate to watch and learn. And one of the things that I think I've walked away with is what leadership really is. And I think if you want to boil it down into just one or two things, these individuals have a very clear vision of what they want to attain, right? And I think that's probably one of the key components of a quality leader. I think the other component is they are willing to accept the reality of whatever the situation is in business or personal life or whatever. The danger in that is that everybody underneath you in the organization could view you as that pessimistic person. I think that's where the danger comes in, because you can't lead you can. I just think it's a really bad way to lead an organization or a company. But there's that fine line of accepting the reality, the cold-hearted reality of we suck, and where we need to be better. And it's only then that you can begin to make better decisions. It's only then that you can really assess, does it make sense to take our family's life savings or mortgage the house or to do this or to do that, and invest it in. I had an individual call me today saying, look, I'm pulling some money out of the market. I'm already well funded in real estate and well funded here, and I'm thinking about getting into trucking. What do you think, right? So that was an interesting conversation. But I think it's the ability to be very clear, have a very clear vision of what you want to attain. In this case, with maybe his money, what he hopes to achieve out of that. If you're a carrier and you want to bring people on, whatever it is, you need to have really strong ability to have cold, clear direction. Back to bullet point number 3. I do want to take just a moment or two. I want to read the subset here, because number 3 was it tends to promote delusional thinking. And he gives a real example, and I want to read this really quickly. He says hope tends to promote delusional thinking on a small scale, but one that demonstrates this. There is an author in my community who has written a book of her life's story, focusing on its hardships and how she overcame them. Well, somewhat. I've read the book, and it is badly written, sketchy at best, and desperate for the skilled eyes of an editor. The author hired one of the many publishing companies that has sprung up in recent years to publish and distribute her book, to whom she paid a very pricey sum. I saw her just a few days ago. I asked her how it was going, and she said she had no idea, but she hoped it would do well. She told me she intended to make enough money from the sales of her book to live in ease and comfort. He goes on to say, as one who has been in the writing and publishing business for decades, I can assure you she will be lucky to recover even a portion of what she's paid to the publishing company. At the risk of sounding insensitive, It really is a badly written book of no interest to anyone except her family or her very generous and forgiving friends. Had she examined the market, studied what makes a successful book, learned how books are marketed these days, accepted the realities of independent publishing, and examined what the profit realities are for 99% of authors, her chances would be better. Not great, but better. But delusion is a powerful force, one that has charmed her into a level of fantasy that will either be disappointing or worse. That's probably something that we can all resonate at some level, right? Whether it was as a kid, we used to write poems and we thought it was really good. And then 15 years later, our mom and dad pulls it out of some drawer and we read it and it's atrocious, right? At the end of the day, I mean, anyone with a computer, anyone with a crappy computer can be an author, can start a blog. Anybody with a camera can have a crappy YouTube channel. Make sense? I want to take that article and I want to change just a couple of words. And I want to see if this maybe doesn't resonate, if we all don't know maybe several people like this. Hope tends to promote delusional thinking on a small scale, but one that demonstrates this. There's an owner-operator in my community who has written a business plan discussing her experience, focusing on its hardships and how she overcame them. Well, somewhat. I've read the business plan. It's badly written, sketchy at best, and difficult for the skilled eyes of an experienced person in business or this industry. The business owner hired one of the many trucking experts that has sprung up recently to help her improve her business, help her determine her cost and improving profit. She paid a pricey sum. I saw her just a few days ago, asked her how it was going. She had no idea of her cost, but she hoped all would go well. She told me she intended to make enough from this business to live in ease and comfort. As one that's been in the transportation business for decades, I can assure you she will be lucky to recover a portion of what she paid for the truck, trailer, business startup costs, etc. At the risk of sounding insensitive, it's a really badly written business plan of no interest to anyone but her. She lacks the understanding of what makes a successful business in transportation. She doesn't understand what lanes, what freight to run. She fails to understand the realities of trucking as an independent owner-operator. She failed to examine what the profit realities are for 99% of carriers. If she did, her chances would be better. Not great, but better. How many people do we know that are just like that in our industry? How many people do we know that they see bigger dollar signs out in the industry and they want to chase that, knowing full well that they don't have the experience, but they are hoping that the higher rates, the better revenue, that they can overcome a lot of efficiencies or, quite frankly, deficiencies in either their business plan or their understanding of the market or their understanding of cost per mile, or they think that revenue is all that matters, right? I'm telling you guys, we could take that article that this individual wrote about an author and we could so quickly and easily just change a few words and it can apply and hit home to me, you, a lot of us in a really strong way. There are a lot of individuals that have taken this chance and they have been unsuccessful and they have failed in a lot of people's eyes. And what that really results into is experience. Just like Kyle at 16 years old learned a really valuable lesson yesterday, one that's probably going to be, he'll continue to learn over the next few weeks or months. But when someone fails, I think it's, especially people on the internet, they are so quick to be critical, and myself included, right? I've done more than my fair share of that on YouTube. I've tried to temper that and try to change that message to be a little bit softer. But man, I think that's a really valid, I think that's a great article. And I'll try to link it in the description below. But I just really wish that people, I want to encourage people to chase their dreams and go after those sorts of things. But man, make sure that you have a good business plan. Make sure you have an understanding of a lot of the variables that we talk about here, as well as a lot of the other variables that you guys see from others who are successful and also learn from those experiences from those that have failed, because those are lessons that if you can avoid repeating, is just cash in your pocket. So that's sort of it, right? 20 minutes of sort of that. I see a lot of that. I've talked to a lot of guys. I don't know if it's because rates have taken a dip or if it's the fact that, I've just started kind of pushing content over the past 2 weeks, that I'm getting a lot of emails, more so than usual. I don't know, maybe it's a combination of both, but I see a lot of that. I talk to a lot of individuals, and there's a lot of that vernacular that's being used. Well, I'm hopeful that this happens or this. I hope rates stay up for a long time. Well, what if they don't, right? Barb, good evening. Heavy Duty, Jim, Dashcam, Alice, Sugarshine John, a whole bunch of people in here. So thanks. Well, there's not that many, I guess. But hey, let's see, 45,000 what? Turning in the insurance. I don't, $4,000 to $5,000, $4,000 or $5,000. My son got a fender bender yesterday, and so the company whose truck it is saying it's going to be like $4,000 or $5,000. So driving school is generally about the cost of the ticket. Well, that's good. And look, clearly, I think my deductible is $500 or something like that. I think that's what it is. I know that's what it is. Clearly, that's the easy decision, right? That's the far less painful way to go. I just don't know that's the right thing to do. There's a lot of times in life where you get more value oftentimes when you spend a little bit more money. And look, Kyle makes a minimum wage. He washes cars for, there's some company that contracts washing cars for auto dealerships. And so that's what he does, right? So he's out in the heat all day long washing cars, him and like 4 or 5 other people. And it would take him a long time to come up with the $2,500 or $2,000, whatever it's going to cost for his half, plus the ticket and plus the driving school and that sort of thing. And I sort of think, well, that's a lot of money for him, and sort of a waste of money for me. I would just turn it in on the insurance for the deductible. But I think the lesson quite possibly could be worth it. It's my 2 cents. I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure which way we're going to go. Hope is real. Please, hope I become stupid wealthy for not doing anything but hoping. Very true, Damon. Very true. QAL, welcome, man. Says, I would ask for the car he hit and take it to the shop yourself and find out what's really wrong with it. I doubt they're going to do that. It's a company vehicle, and look, I mean, Kyle asked me, he was like, Dad, is there any way, how in the world could that happen? I said, well, look, I don't know what the price of a new bumper is. Pick a number, right? $400 or $500. Typically, the labor is almost as much as the part. So if the bumper's $400 and $200 or $300 for some labor, a quarter panel. It's a 2017 truck, right? So relatively new vehicle. What's a quarter panel? $600-700. Maybe they can fix that and paint it or whatever. Look, if I'm that company, I don't want that quarter panel fixed and repainted. Just get me a new one. I want it exactly the way that it was. I want a new one. I can't blame them for that. I would probably want the same thing. If somebody hit one of our trucks, I'd expect it to be replaced, or especially if it was a new one. So, again. This sucks. Really expensive lesson. Maybe it comes in at $1,500 or $2,000. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to come in. I'll let you guys know on Monday. But I think it's important to teach a really important lesson here. Again, $2,000 or whatever. To me, the far more important lesson is, don't be driving that fast when you're driving that close. And look, I guarantee you, everybody that watches this video or on this live feed, we can all appreciate that. Howard's here. Bob, let's see, heavy duty. You do not use one of your 5 lifetime driving schools so young. I think what Tanya was telling me was that you can do that like once every 2 years in Arizona or something like that. Let's see, I've never heard there's a... Sorry, I had a phone call. I had to put them to voicemail. Oh, let's see. I've never heard there's a lifetime limitation of driving school of 5 times. I've never heard that on Arizona. Yeah, that's what she was telling me, that it's like once every 2 years. Bear with me really quick. Let me just text this person and tell them that I'm on a live feed, and I'll call them later. Let's see, Dashcam, I hope I never lose my my company job, no doubt. Barb says Kyle's having to put his big boy pants on and see what it's like to make mistakes. And that's sort of the point. And, you know, especially, look, Kyle's a really, he's a pretty mature young man. I'm really super proud of the person that he's becoming. But I think that, like most 16-year-olds, there's oftentimes they sort of feel like they're 26. And this could have ended really poorly. I mean, this is a really dangerous kind of situation. I'm not trying to make light of it. You know, this had the opportunity to be really a dangerous situation. And I wanted to learn that lesson. And I think maybe making it a little bit more expensive and painful now might very well do that. All right, let me jump down. Pigtails in here, how are you? Kenworth Ryder, good evening, Scott, Dashcam. Let's see, Thomas Wilson, how's it going? Let's see. Nittany Lion, Harvard Business Review. No, this one was not on the Harvard Business Review, although I have read a lot of the stuff, and I'm sure that I have read some of the Harvard Business. I mean, I shouldn't say I'm sure, but they have a lot of good stuff that I check out from time to time. Truck says, preach it. Loshan's in here, how's it going, man? Sugar Shine, we don't have a cap here. You can go once every 2 years. Just had an accident in October. That's how I know. Very cool. And Little Viking Coach, it's funny you mentioned that word sketchy because we were talking about that word sketchy last night. That author used it. That's not my word. That's theirs. That's their word. Howard says, hey, I bought a truck and trailer. Now what do? Howard, how many times have we seen those comments and we've talked about that? It's crazy. Well, let's see. Little Viking says, leadership, don't ask someone to do something you aren't willing to do yourself. Yeah, I think there's some of that in there for sure, right? I do. Jackknife TV, hope doesn't pay the bills. Hope doesn't pay your employees. Hope doesn't control the market. Hope doesn't fix DPF or EGR problems. Well said, man. Well said. Little Viking says, an idiot with a plan will beat a genius without a plan every time. I tell you, you know, I had the opportunity to, again, I've just had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with some of these individuals that anyone in the world would look to these guys and say, these are true leaders in business. And I've had the opportunity to pick their brain and spend time with them personally in, you know, in private settings and stuff. And you just learn a lot. And what's really fascinating to me that I think I walk away with is that you expect to come away with some sort of epiphany, some magic pixie dust, some silver bullet answer, when in reality, they break business down into very basic, compact scenarios. And so they might foresee some massive technology undertaking or some massive problem that requires, you know, thousands of man hours, you know, tens of millions of dollars to create. And the ability that they have, that I think a lot of people don't, is they're able to break those down into small components and attack each one of them individually from the right angle. And then that culminates in that right product or that right service that they can then take to market and have a competitive advantage. And so you expect to walk away with some just like, again, some epiphany, and in reality, they just are able to think in really basic terms and then execute really well. Greg Goodman says, get YouTube to tell you what you want to do next, Howard. No doubt, right? Hey, speaking of this, you know, I want to talk just a minute about this. I did a video a couple months back. I wrote it down. What was it called? Risk It All. And in that, it's a short video. It's like 6-7 minutes. If this topic interests you, go check out that video because you know, there is, and I'm not going to go into this video or in this live feed because this video covers it, but there is a big difference. A lot of people talk about hope as it relates to risk assessment and some of those types of things. And I want to make something really clear. There's a big difference between risk and uncertainty, right? And risk is knowing what the probability is. So if I'm rolling a 6-sided dice or die, I've got a 17% chance, 16 and something percent chance of rolling my number, right? A 1 in 6 chance, how about that, of hitting my number. And that, I know that, right? I know what my probability is. I know what my odds are. And so I can assess the risk, right? 16%. Uncertainty is not knowing what my odds are and that sort of thing. So I sort of dive into that a little bit deeper for those that are lease op or owner op or contemplating that. Big difference between risk and uncertainty and understanding risk management. So check out that video. There's my shameless plug for a video a while back. Let's see, Loshan's talking to Jim about Prime. Let's see, talk to your agent. He's going to tell you to turn it in. All right, I missed a comment, obviously. Benjamin Duke, most of the time, the knowledge and experience is what you get your first time out in trucking. That's probably a lot of truth to that. If you save up for your second run, now armed with the hurdles, you know what you have to overcome. Yeah, I'll agree with that. Jim says he tries not to be a know-it-all, humble and lovable, like Shoeshine Boy. There's always something to learn. Yeah, Howard and I talk about that. Every single day there's something that we learn new. In this industry, it just never ceases to amaze me. Benjamin Duke says, well thought out is not the information you have at the beginning. Few even catch the things talked about on YouTube or the old timers. You still have to put it all together. Yeah, it's a puzzle, right? Business. Again, I don't care if it's business, personal life, whatever. It's a puzzle. My dad, before I got married, he and we took a trip out to Hilton Head, and we were golfing. And one of the first times I ever had a beer with my dad. And we were talking about life and that sort of thing, and he gave me some good advice. I'm sure others have heard it too. And he said, look, marriage is not 50-50, right? If you go into marriage thinking it's 50-50, you're grossly mistaken. You're setting yourself up for massive failure. The game plan here is you give 100%, and you expect that you're gonna get 100% in return as well. And I think business is a lot like that too, man. You're gonna get out of it what you put into it. The thing that I think a lot of people miss is they might be giving 100%, but they're trying to pound a square peg into a round hole, and that doesn't work, right? So you've got to be giving 100% at the right pieces of the puzzle. What's in the glass? Ice water. Iced water. Somebody, hey, I don't know if you guys follow me on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. Stupid thing I posted earlier. I was going to go out to the truck to get a pen. Actually, I was going to get a pen, and I took a couple steps out the front door. I was like, "Ooh!" Now, the first few steps out the front door is like it's in shade, like most of the day, but it was the concrete pavers in the driveway. Right, it's crazy hot. I was just barefoot, so I had 2 steps. And I'm like jumping back in the house. I went and grabbed my infrared thermometer. I took a picture of it, posted it on Instagram or Facebook, whatever. 169 degrees is what those pavers were. It's 115 outside today. So that was sort of crazy. Even more strange to me was the travertine in the backyard that I'm staring at. So I went out and lasered it because I was concerned about the dog's paws. I was able to walk on it barefoot. I'm not going to stand still for a long time, but I can walk on it okay barefoot. It was 124 degrees, and it's been in the sun all day. It's crazy how how travertine can withstand that heat a lot better. Trucker Assassin, how's it going? Let's see, Greg Inman, and you guys talking about something else. Let's see, Jackknife. I want to throw something by you. So if I'm leased onto a company, hay for the truck and here for the truck and trailer, I'm thinking about buying a day cab and hiring an employee. I have an old authority that never went active. Let me try to read that again. Apologize. Let's see. I'm leased into a current company, and you're looking at buying a cab and having that individual. Well, look, if you're asking for my advice, I guess if you got the freight for that individual to be successful, and you sort of have if you got a plan how that individual is going to make money and be successful, and it's going to keep your truck running, sure, right? I guess I guess what you're suggesting is you want to have the consistent income, but you want to start something on the side. So, sure, right? I think a lot of businesses have been started that way. I started one of the first companies I ever did in a similar kind of way. So, you'll just have to, you have to go through some hoops and hurdles probably to get it back active, but in any event. Let's see. Greg Emmons says, if you want your authority. Nah, yeah, Greg Emmons talking about there. Diego, hey Scott, you mentioned in a previous video that your company is located in a different state than you. Does that affect your day-to-day operations at all? Is this for strategic reasons? So is it for strategic reasons? A small percentage of it you could probably throw underneath that category. We had a customer that was interested in having us start a facility down here. So that was kind of an added bonus to me coming down here. The real reason was that my ex remarried a guy down here, and so Kyle was 14, 15 or something like that at the time, and it just wasn't the right time for him to be separated. I mean, my ex and I have a really good friendship, and so that was the driving component behind it. But does it have impacts? It does, right? And I have worked virtual office for many, I mean, I don't know, 15 plus years or something like that. I've worked in a virtual office environment, so I'm very accustomed to it. Communication is really key, and but there are times when just you need to be in the office, and that face-to-face communication is important. And thankfully, with the jumping a plane or that sort of thing. Cluster Trucker, how's it going? Jim, 6.1666, what is? Oh, 16.66% for the 1 and 6. Gotcha, thanks. I knew it was somewhere around there. Let's see, Diego, good info about new entry, Greg. Greg, I'm glad to see. I had missed, I guess, some of your comments. I'm just kind of scrolling through this. I'm glad to see you're finally, coming into the channel, adding a little bit of value. It's about time. I'm just kidding, by the way. Only Lonely says, Exec, how big of a role do you think work ethic plays? I think it plays a disgusting, sick role in this success. Here's another thing about those individuals that I talked about that were, wickedly successful. And I think you can look at this. I don't care if it's some YouTubers that have millions and millions of subscribers, kids that start businesses at young ages, any business. I think professional athletes, whatever it is, I think work ethic plays an incredible role in that. I think it's very rare that people, and I'm thinking about some athletes right now that I know, they've gone through many different trials and tribulations. I don't know of the athletes that I know that play ball professionally. I think every one of them that I can think of off the top of my head have gone through some really significant surgeries, probably things that most surgeons said your career is probably going to be over. So I think everybody goes through those challenges. I think it's that work ethic, that dedication, and that desire of just, it's that adage of, I hate to lose more than I love to win. I think that's sort of that driving force behind that for a lot of those people that are successful. Will Burke, yeah, you saw that, right? It's a dry heat. Man, it's ridiculous. And here's I hate to say this. I guess I'm acclimated to it. Yeah, it's really freaking hot out. Going to the backyard, it's not too bad. Somebody made a comment about the swimming pool. They're like, you're going to need ice for the swimming pool. I just ran the temp on it. I was looking on my app on the temp on the pool. I think it was like, was it 84 degrees, which sounds like miserably hot, but when you consider the ambient air temperature is like 115 or so, that 30 or 35 degree difference, I'm not gonna say that it feels refreshing, but it doesn't feel bad. It doesn't feel like bath water. Food Mooch, what's on the screen? I don't know, what screen? What are you talking about? Benjamin Duke says, easy part is deciding your plan and timeline to get into the truck and trailer. The first hardest is paying for everything that you just set out. Then your list of issues to go figure out how to overcome. I think it's that situation really, guys, and I talk about this often, is when you start a business or you're going to, like this other gentleman asked about, he's working for, as a company driver, I think, and then he's looking to hire or buy a day cab. You really want to work backwards, right? I've given other videos on my first channel about when I used to play golf, right, for a living. You get on the golf course, you start at the first tee, and then you play the fairway and you get to the green, then you go to the second tee, and it's not just me. I mean, other guys used to do this as well. They'll actually get in a golf cart and they'll drive the golf course backwards from the 18th green all the way back to the first tee. And what happens is you see things in a completely different light. I mean, the course looks completely different. When you stand on the tee, the designers of the course try to make some things look very visually intimidating. Try to tempt you not to hit the ball there, to hit it somewhere else where it's more dangerous, quite possibly. When you drive the course from completely in reverse, 180-degree different view, you in fact determine that maybe it's right, that's not the right play. I actually do want to hit it over here. Business is the same way. You really want to determine your exit strategy first, right? And then work backwards and create the success for that exit strategy. Doesn't mean that you're always going to have that, you're always going to follow that path. I'm telling you right now, you will be faced with 1,000 different whys in the road that you will change your decisions, but you need to anticipate those and be prepared for those. You need to have thought ahead of those things prior. There are going to be times in business that you're going to be surprised. Your job as a leader, as an owner, is to mitigate the amount of times that you're surprised, right? You're just going to be constantly thinking. I mean, when you take a shower, you're going to be thinking about, how do I mitigate potential problems, right? Food Mitch says, am I the only person who sees that on the screen? What are you talking about, Food? What do you see? Fuel, plates, road tax, repairs, tires, truck, trailer, freight, pick your lanes, insurance, retirement. Yeah, there's a lot of things. Where are the dogs at? They were right here when I started that. Briggs is over there in the living room, and Grace is right behind the couch or by the sliding glass door. It's weird. You would think that she wouldn't be laying sort of in the sun, but she does. Underwear in the freezer, man, no doubt. It's about that hot. It is just about that hot. I'm telling you guys, if it gets like in the 120s, I'm gonna make like fried egg videos. I'll be that person. I was looking for ceiling fans and trying to get outdoor ones, and there's not nearly as many like metal bladed ceiling fans. You would think there would be a lot of those, especially there's not. Now it's gone off your screen. Sure, Food Mooch, that's great. Howard, who let the dogs out? No, well played. Dashcan Sam, plan to be poor, hope to be rich. Hey, Zach, I did see your email just a little bit ago. I'll give you a response here and just a little bit later tonight. So that's kind of it. I think it's so easy for us to fall into, especially in business, to fall in the traps of hope. I see it. We can all see it. We can go to Rate Per Mile Masters. We can go to some of these other Facebook forums, and you can read things in there. And to say that it's just mind-blowing is an understatement, right? I mean, it's just mind-blowing, the things that you read from some of these individuals, and other individuals say what I'm thinking, which is, I cannot believe these people are in business, right? I cannot believe that these people are in business. The good news for everyone else is that's our competition, right? I had someone ask me one time, we were at a US Open qualifier, and it was a friend of mine. He was attempting to qualify as well, and this was his first time, and he was all nervous and everything. And I said this, and this actually ties in really well, because I said we should break this big challenge down into really small components, right? Like I was talking, like some of these other guys do really well. And I said, look, if there's going to be 150 guys here at this event, probably 50 of them really have no business even being here. That's going to leave 100 players that you got to compete with. Of those 100 players, half of them are not going to be on their game, right? And so all you're really competing against is 30 or 40 guys that you've got to go out and really compete and beat. That's it. So don't look at it as if, oh my gosh, yeah, there's 150 guys here that are better than me. If you do that, I promise you're going to lose. Same thing with business, right? If you go into this looking at this as, man, I don't know how to get my authority. I don't know how to do any of these things. You just got to start somewhere, and whether it's understanding the lanes, understanding the rates, understanding business, cost per mile. And you can do some of these things simultaneously, right? If you're not great with numbers or spreadsheet, talk to an accountant, pay them, let them start working on your cost per mile spreadsheet while you're spending your time over looking at load boards or looking at data, other places to find where strong rates are, trying to determine, do you want to haul, again, whatever it's day cab or flatbed or reefer or whatever. You can be doing these things, coinciding with each other. But you got to break it down into small components. Food, clean the egg salad off the screen. Yeah, were you eating? It's called a Big Ass Fan Company. Look it up. I'll check it out. Only the lonely. If man-to-man defense wasn't working well, would these leaders change or stick to the plan? If man-to-man defense wasn't working well. Not sure what you mean there, lonely. But if your question is, are they always going to stay this? Are they always going to stay the kind of the path? Or are they going to change? And I think the answer is yes, right? Sometimes you have to just know that that's the right thing to do, and we're going to stay the path. We're going to find a solution. I worked for an engineering company to turn them around back in early 2000. The individuals that worked at this company were, some of the brightest people I've ever met. Some of these individuals, sent stuff out into space and worked on software or coding and different things for NASA. Brilliant individuals. And there was a problem in the technology industry, and more specifically in the telecommunications industry. Companies like AT&T, companies like Lucent, Ericsson, Qualcomm, others could not solve this problem. And we were in a meeting one day, and we were talking about revenue and how to produce. And I just had mentioned, off the cuff, I was being sarcastic, actually. I said, well, if we could just find a way to solve this problem, we wouldn't have much to worry about. Two and a half weeks later, these guys found, not just guys, but the engineers, they found not one but two ways to do it. I don't know how many man hours had gone into trying to solve this problem all over the world. And, this relatively small company of 150 people, right? So I think that's an example of you stay the path, right? In many occasions. I think in many occasions, you've got to say, no, man, we've gone down this road and this isn't the right path. We've got to throw in reverse and go a different route. And that's where that experience, that's where that anticipation, spending time understanding your business, your industry, your rates, your lanes, all those things, your customers, all those things help you determine which way is the right direction and when you've gone down a path, too long. And I will tell you that in my experience, it usually becomes at a certain point in time, it usually becomes pretty obvious. I think the real trick is to make sure that it becomes obvious before you run out of money, right? That's the trick, and that's where a lot of people fail. And I think lonely, that gets back to, somebody's question, maybe it was Barb's question, of when do you know the right time? And I just think but you've got to spend that time, and it's really about work ethic, spending the time, and it's easy to do when you're passionate about the space or your company or whatever it is you're doing. Alice says the moon's up. The moon might be up here too, but the sun's certainly out. Let's see, dedicated auto parts run. I work hard watching YouTube all day. No, Zach, you got the right email. I did. I didn't respond. I just glanced at it a few minutes ago. Yeah, and there's a lot of truth to that, Greg. I was talking to a driver here, this is a couple months ago that we were having this conversation, and they are at a company, kind of a small to maybe a mid-sized company. And they were expressing their really sincere frustrations with how much has changed in their company as it's grown over the past year or so, or a couple of years, I guess. And how many policies are there and all this sort of stuff. And I just explained to them, I said, a lot of policies in small companies, you can attach a name to that policy. And what I mean by that is, if we're using trucking as an example, well, we'll use us, right? We don't allow cats, right? There's a very specific reason why we don't allow cats. And I can attach a name to that policy. And I've got plenty of policies where I have names attached to them. Now, new employees might not see the person. They're not going to see the person's name, but myself, Howard, and Charlie, and those that have been around since kind of early day one, early inception of Bella Flor, they know exactly who caused us to write that policy, right? It's sort of that adage of, there's a rule and, somebody hangs a sign because somebody was stupid enough to do it, right? It's like, don't feed the mountain lions by hand, right? Why does that sign exist? Because some idiot, fed a mountain lion by hand. Hey, speaking of that, totally random ADD thought. A buddy of mine lives in the mountains of Colorado, posted a video of his neighbor. He and his neighbor share a driveway. Posted a picture of his neighbor's deck from yesterday morning. 5 mountain lions are drinking out of almost like a flower pot. 5 mountain lions right outside his sliding glass door. Dashcan Sam, hey, good broker is worth their weight in gold. I don't disagree with that. How many are out there? There's a lot less good ones than there are bad ones. I don't know what the number is. Jonathan Bearden. Jonathan Bearden is a driver who has the cat truck. Jonathan Bearden doesn't know this, but we're probably going to have a policy named after him. Cats are evil. Cats are cool to watch. I don't even mind petting them. But man, I just other than that, I'm not the biggest cat guy. Jackknife TV, a shipper's worth a hell of a lot more. Nothing like having a dedicated shipper. Man, there's a lot, trust me, right? If you guys can find that dedicated shipper, man, even if it's just one, if you just have one leg and you can just fill a couple of runs a month for them, I'm telling you, they are worth their weight in gold. The post-trip your trailer or pay $50 when the next driver finds your bad equipment policy. That is not because of Jonathan Bearden, but yes, we did implement that. And then I was the nice guy, and we didn't continue that policy. I would be willing to bet $50 that we implement that policy before next spring. In fact, Howard, maybe we should implement that policy before mum season. Jonathan Beard, that's funny. How many policies have Joe Cannell's name attached? Man, I really want to say something derogatory about it. I can't think of a Joe Cannell policy. I do have a funny story about it. Here's a random funny story. So Joe, as everybody knows, right? Joe drove for quite a few years. He came in to work in the office for us for what we hoped was going to be an extended period of time. It turned out to be a really short period of time. I was at the office for a week or two there while he was there. And I came in with some kind of urgent question or urgent issue. I think there was a trailer still in the dock and whoever was supposed to pick it up wasn't there and it'd been sitting for a while, whatever. So I sort of come in with a purpose into the transportation office, right? I open the door and we have a back door that goes outside. So I open the door, Cannell's not there, but the back door is wide open. A few of the other people in the office sort of just shaking their head, right? And I'm like, where's Cannell? And they're like, he's out back. So I go out back. And from this door, I don't know, there's 300 yards or 400 yards, whatever, to a lake, one of our holding ponds. And Cannell's stomping. I mean, he's stomping towards the lake. And I'm like, what the hell is he doing? What is he doing? He had gotten so mad at some drivers. He had taken his cell phone and chucked it. I mean, just like he wanted to throw it in the lake. The lake's 400 yards away. He just threw it as far as he could. And then he had to go walk and pick it up. That's like the walk of shame. And so I just happened to see Cannell, and he turns around and he's just he's as red as those umbrellas, man. He's furious. That's one of those things that I'll never forget. I mean, I laughed so hard. And that just made it worse because I thought it was funny because he was so pissed and he's chucking phones and he's pissed at, He's pissed at drivers, of which he used to be. I always love those moments, just so everybody knows. I mean, I cherish those moments when Howard gets so pissed or Wilbur gets so pissed. I cherish those because those guys were all drivers. And then they get to see what I have to deal with. And it warms my heart. It just warms my heart. Little Mike and Coach says, Richard Branson, Elon Musk, Cuban, all outside of the corporate culture. Most corporate types can't be free thinkers. Yeah, those are some pretty impressive list of individuals. And I don't care, look, right now, Musk and those guys are just burning through piles and piles of cash. And, he said a couple of dumb things and all that kind of stuff. But whether or not those companies, ultimately turn, large sums of money or whatever, I mean, those guys have been successful in changing directions of entire industries. So it's pretty cool to see. Brett from Florida, late check-in. Good evening, Scott and the group. Currently driving, listening only mode. Good for you. But I just will point out that you did type that. Nailed it. Majority of millennials are clueless to the concept of work ethics. Kyle is quick to, Kyle's that guy, as he was growing up playing competitive sports and even now, and a lot of these kids were that way, and it actually made it tough. There were a few years there that really incredible teams that he was on that we coached. Some of these kids, man, really impressive athletes, really impressive leaders, but almost all of them were sort of quiet. They go about their work, they do their job, and they expect everybody else to do that. And even as young men, when they saw others not performing up to task or not practicing as hard or not doing this, whatever, it took them a while, but man, eventually they were quick to call these guys out in really constructive ways. And Kyle still does that. He gets real frustrated at kids on the team. And I was a little curious how that was going to play out for him, coming to a new state, to a new team where he knew no one. And I was really proud of him because nothing changed. He went out, took care of his business, worked his ass off. And his work ethic, this is not just me being a dad because I'm really hard on him. His work ethic kicked everybody else's ass on that team. And the coaches were like, well, I don't know where this kid came from, but wow, man, his baseball IQ is off the charts. His work ethic is off the charts. He was out hustling, out working seniors, and that's the way to do it. But he's not shy to call him out every now and then, and I think that's good. And I hope that he has that strong work ethic. To me, that's just something really valuable. I learned that in rural America, and I was concerned by him not growing up in rural America that he might miss that out. Are we guys getting close to the lease option for drivers? We are getting very close. I have put a deadline to the attorneys of August 1st. I just sent them an email here about an hour or so ago. So fingers crossed. Let's see, Benjamin Duke. In that statement of a name to a policy, how would you have to know you needed a policy and how to handle that issue, without surviving that issue? There's truth to that. I mean, look, that's sort of where I got back to, Benjamin Duke, is you sort of need to play through in your mind. Again, I'll use golf as an example, right? When you go out to that course before the tournament starts, you play a practice round and you anticipate where the good shots are going to go. And golf is not about the good shots. It's about the bad shots. It's where you miss. And you want to miss in the right places. And that's sort of like business too, right? You sort of play this event out in your mind. Just like with you guys with trip planning or route planning. If you're going from wherever to the Northwest in the dead of winter, I mean, route planning is a critical component to not just your safety, but your success, right? Knowing what route you're going to take, checking the weather, dissecting all that sorts of stuff, right? Chain laws and where you're going to buy fuel and all that sort of stuff. It's just a critical component, and you do that in advance, or you should do that in advance. And so, but the rest of business is like that as well. Musk just seems to not care how much money he loses. It does sort of seem that way. And look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to question him or whatever, but my mind wonders, like, is he just so convinced that the technology is something that we must have, that he's going to stay that course and investors will fund it because they have shown the level of success that they've had. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. My Dr. Evil side is showing out. Food Mochi is smart. Come on. Anybody that's like home, I think his story is pretty cool. My kids are workers, thank God. They like money. Yeah. Kyle and I were talking here, but it's been a while ago, you know, what does he want to be when he grows up, kind of thing. And I said, sort of like I said to you guys, right? Define your exit strategy. And I said, well, what kind of lifestyle do you want to live? What kind of a house do you want to live in? How many houses do you want to have? Where do you want them? What do you want to drive, right? And if that's you know, you want a house that's a 7-figure house, or you want to drive Maseratis or whatever, you're gonna have to be able to afford that lifestyle, and that comes with that comes with a lot more work and that sort of stuff, and a different set of goals that you got to attain early on if that's what you want to achieve. You know, you're not going to drive Maseratis, you know, if you're, you know, working at the Jiffy Lube, right? Benjamin Duke, Zach, money's a renewable resource. Look at the oil industry and trucking. Once you run out, you find a way to earn more. Little Bike Coach says, tell Kyle to watch Dallas Paint Correction Detail channel. Great channel. He can start his own business. I'll do that. Bearden says, missed your comment. Very good. All right, hey, long video. It's an hour. It's just over. Let's kill it. Hope is not a good business plan, but it does play a role in it. Understand the difference. Check out that video, Risk It All. It's like 6-7 minutes of your life. I think it's probably worth it. If you're interested in this and understanding what the difference between risk and uncertainty and how that plays a role in your success as a lease operator or company operator or that sort of thing. So that's it. That's all. If you guys are making miles, stay safe. Take care.